Hey, this is News from Heaven. Today, dysfunctional friendships cause problems in the afterlife. And I want to dedicate this episode to a very particular friend of mine. You know who you are. I'm kidding. I don't have any friends. Let's take a look at this description of a state in the afterlife. I said it. That is what we're talking about today. And how does that relate, though, to principles that we can act on today? And how does it help us untangle and unpack the confusing world of motivation and pleasure? What do we take joy in, and how does that affect how much of our head weather is negativity and how much of it is what we could call the light coming through? This is from Secrets of Heaven 4804, and this is not something you can download the PDF to, but you're certainly welcome to track down the book and follow along, or find a good search site, or any of the above. 4804. There are very many communities in the next life which are called friendship communities. That doesn't sound bad. Where do you live? I live in friendship community. So what could possibly be the problem with friendship community? That's like, we did a focus group, and they said that name was a little too on the nose. So what's going on with these friendship communities? They consist of those who during their lifetime preferred the delight of association with others to any other delight, and who loved those with whom they associated without any interest at all in whether these were good or evil people, provided they gave them delight. This is always how it is when you're describing afterlife, or Swedenborg is describing accounts of it. You come across principles that are timeless and universal. So I feel like a headline here is, what causes a community? Here, what causes a community? Can you afford to live there? Were your parents from the area? But in life after death, what causes community? It's what you love, what you enjoy. He says this community is formed by the delight of association with others. So this is a group of people. How did they all get together in this friendship community? Welcome to Friendshipville. It's because what they love the most, what drives them, is the same. It doesn't matter necessarily, do they look the same? Did they have a similar life in this world? What matters is, what do they love the most? And that is like gravity, pulling everyone to the common center, which is this love. And in this case, what is that love for everybody here? The delight of association with others. It's just fun hanging out, like that social intercourse, the delight of good companionship. I don't know what you're doing, telling jokes, watching Netflix. This is the thing I enjoy the most. And it doesn't sound, on its face, doesn't seem to have any negative side effects. Okay, great. You like having friends. I think where we start to get a sense of where could the dysfunction arise is here, where he's saying, look, this is what matters to me. The joy I get from interacting with you. It doesn't matter what you are like or what impact you're having on the world. And haven't we had recently in the news a number of scandals where people who are powerful and famous have been found to, and you could say this probably about any time period in history, have been found to have been doing terrible things throughout their life to a lot of people. And what comes after that, all these photographs appear of like, look, this famous person or this well-known person was hanging out with that person, so that's an indictment on the person hanging out with them. There is this reaction to, how can you associate with somebody who's done these, even though you didn't do those things? The fact that you're associating with someone who's doing those, there's a problem there. Like you should be aware that there's something wrong with loving to be around and getting along with, and not stopping the person who is causing all this harm. So we do in this world have a sense of associating with people because you like them, if they're not caring at all what their character is or what their impact on other people is. That's a little bit of a problem. Thus, they were not ones who befriended what was good and true. We just got back into the small text. We got to zoom out for that, because this is absolutely key to what heaven is. And by the way, as we explore this, we're going to get a very clear picture of what's the difference between heaven and these friendship communities. Thus, they were not ones who befriended what was good and true. All the time, Swedenborg talks about the difference between a person. Look at this. We're really getting our money's worth on the stick people here. So you have people. If this is us here, and we see these people, we can love particular people. That's right. But there's also what is good. Fairness, mercy, justice, compassion, everything that is honorable and noble to come through someone. And then there is what is true, which is the principles and beliefs and framework which lead to and harmonize with right action. So these two are joined. And what we're hearing the ideal is, believe it or not, you'd think we just love these people. Yeah, but it's a little more complicated than that. Really, the greatest thing to do is to love what's good and what's true. Because then when those things show up in these people, when they touch their minds and touch their hearts, that's the state that we love and encourage in these people. And that is what we befriend within them. That's what we can connect to. And this is not too alien. You think about this is what parenting is. You love your kids, but you love if you're hopefully doing what the rest of us would want you to do, you love and try to encourage what's good and true within them. Meaning if your kid is starting to do things that are damaging, you're not just saying, well, it's you and you did it, and so I love that. In a very negative example, you can, but instead you're saying, whoa, you've got to not do that. And there's times when with family members of all kinds, you can say, look, if you're being this dysfunctional, I have to back off from you. Or if you learned, I think the easiest example is, let's say there's somebody that you love or you're friends with, and you really like them, and then you learn that they killed somebody or did something really, really egregious, and they haven't been caught for it, and that they're a threat to do it again. Right? Or just they have done it. To say, I'm going to protect that person against the common good because I have affection for that person. Right? We can see that's not too hard to tell. There's a problem there. Instead, to befriend what's good and true is to say, look, person, that what you've done is totally against what's good and true. And your only hope, and this is really love for that person as well, because if you continue down that path where you premeditate and think and enjoy doing the things that are hell, that's not going to get you anywhere happy, let alone all the other people you're going to hurt on your way, which loving what's good and true is valuing them as much as you value the people you know better. But the only way for you who have done this terrible thing, and again, it depends on the state of mind, the circumstances, this is just an example, but the only real future for you and me and anyone for happiness is to align back to what's good and true. So when somebody's deviated from it a lot, your effort would be, how do I get this person back to what's good and true? That it could be like, you've got to go turn yourself in and start your reformation. It doesn't mean you don't want them to be happy, but it's just the wisdom is, there's no happiness drifting out and away from what's good and what's true. So the problem that we have in these friendship communities is that rather than befriend what's good and true, they don't really care whether people are getting input from what's good and true or getting input from what's evil and false and acting on those. They just know, this is fun. This is fun hanging out. I like hanging out with you. That's what that's the campfire we're gathered around here. All right. Those who have been like this during their lifetime remain the same in the next life. They attach themselves to one another solely because of their delight of association with others, which is what we were saying before. That's the gravity. The delight is the gravity that brings those people together. Many such communities have been present with me, though kept at a distance, visible for the most part overhead, slightly to the right. Swedenborg weirdness. That somehow These, you can map all of where everyone is in relation to the human form, because the human form is the microcosm. I get to say that word a lot on this channel. It's the miniature of the divine design and of reality. So loving a particular thing it's like the table of contents. You can know if you love this particular thing, that puts you in relationship to distance from this particular part, because this part serves a particular function, blah, blah, blah. You know, if you've been watching this channel, you know what I'm talking about. If you're new to this channel, you just clicked away anyway. So it doesn't matter. Sorry about that. It was really fun having you for a little while. Many such communities have been present with me. I read that. I was made aware of their presence. So they've got these friendship communities that are in Swedenborg's, I would say, sphere. That these are somehow, their life is touching his life. And what does it do to him? Why are these friendship communities a problem? I was made aware of their presence by a dull and sluggish feeling, and by a loss of my own feeling. This is interesting. By a loss of my own feeling of delight. Neither of these good, but this is so fascinating. So Swedenborg's own joy, what brings him a red thing in his heart, starts to fade when they get close. For the presence of communities such as these leads to this. Indeed, when they arrive on the scene, they remove others' feelings of delight. And what is remarkable, they make it their own. Well, that's obviously a problem. You're taking somebody's happiness and making it your happiness instead. But it's a weird, why does a community gathered around the delight of association with each other, why would it have that effect? Here we go. For they turn away the spirits present with others and direct them toward themselves, thereby transferring another's delight to themselves. I thought it was something that would sound a little more normal. But if you think about the model of consciousness that Swedenborg has described, you got yourself, stick people, that goodness and the truth. I mean, heaven itself, which is God coming through the human race. This is the source of everything that is joy. What's good and true is the source of everything that has joy within it. And it gets to us through heaven, then down through the layers of reality, and then it ends up with us. Done so through us, just like up here, there is a community, right? People in spirit, which is, bodies have died. You're in the next level of consciousness. You're brought together by what you love. We have a spirit right now, and our spirit currently is in community with other spirits that love the same things that we do. And this community of friendship over here doesn't care that these spirits are an integral part of our chain of consciousness. They don't care what that spirit is up to or doing or the use it's providing. They just care, like, oh, it might be fun to bring you over here. And as such, because they're not thinking about the whole, they're thinking about themselves, which really, spoiler alert, is the central problem. That has the effect of taking Swedenborg's joy. And because such communities are for this reason dangerous and harmful to those governed by good, because they disrupt the order, the Lord therefore holds them back to prevent them going near heavenly communities. Okay, you've got your community there, but you can't get in here and mess up communities that are not running on that love, communities that are running on the love for the whole human race. They're incompatible. From this, I was unable to know how much harm friendship does to someone's spiritual life if he pays attention to the person, but not to what is good. That sounds a little harsh. Like, of course we want to be friends with people, but this next sentence I feel like is a good way to look at it. Anyone can indeed befriend another. Sure, that's fine. But most of all, he ought to befriend what is good. This is just the same as the different levels of love in a person. Swedenborg will say, love of your own self-image, love of your own reputation and rank is the bane of our existence. It's the source of all the evil that we interact with, but you're not trying to get rid of it. You're not trying to get to a state where, certainly not anytime soon, where you don't even have any concern for that. Yeah, and maybe ever. But it's just supposed to be the least important thing. Like, it's there, but it's the least important thing. This is the thing that, sure, I enjoy it, but I would never place my delight in my self-image over the needs of somebody else, which is, if you flip that and you have people putting their own desire to rule or whatever they're going after over the need and value of other people's lives, you get all the problems that we have in the world right now. So with this, it's fine to love individual people. Of course, you don't need me to tell you that. But you don't put your friendship with anything, or really your delight in anything, above your principles, above what's good and true. And this is something that is common movie plot. We know there are things that are right and good, and when there is some kind of infraction on that, we know the right thing to do is stick with the principles. Doesn't mean you ditch them. It just means that what's leading my affection for you is a desire to stay with what's good and true, and to hopefully keep you in what's good and true to the extent that I can. Get all kinds of friends, but just know what the great friend is for everyone is what's good and true. Because when we all turn toward that in the center, if everybody in the human race is loving what is honest and fair and just and beneficial to everyone in the common good, that's what we're friends with, everything turns out great for everyone. Everyone is happier. But when we instead turn that love toward a particular group and love that group more, which we're about to get to, that's when we get all this division and all this justification of being barbaric to groups outside of your group. I think I just ruined the surprise of this next paragraph. There are also communities of interior friendship which remove from another, the interior friendship. This is going even deeper, which remove from another and channel to themselves not his external delight, but his internal delight. That is, the bliss which his affection for spiritual things gives him. So this is the same principle as the community we had before, but this is robbing people of even what's most dear and most beneficial to them. The position of those spirits is out in front and on the right, immediately above the lower earth, though some of them are positioned somewhat higher up than the rest. I have spoken on several occasions to those in the lower position, and whenever I did so, a general influx from those above took place. We're getting into the mechanics of consciousness. So if it sounds like, why is there all this weird structure in how just go and look in the brain, and you'll see that there's all this weird structure, but it's what leads to, your mental activity. This is one step up, that all of our brains are hooked into this structure that's organized by humanity. Consciousness is basically a communal experience made possible by this intricate arrangement. We are all like an individual neuron in this grand human consciousness machine. So that's my explanation for why you would have a weird description like this of what's going on the large scale, mirroring what's going on the small scale. During their lifetime, and this is when we get into stuff we can really feel. During their lifetime, they were the kind of people who had a heartfelt love for others. Heartfelt love for others. That's great, right? What's the qualifier here? In their common fellowship, and with brotherly feelings embraced one another. They had believed that they alone were living and in the light, and that compared with themselves, those outside their community were neither living nor in the light. Being of this frame of mind, they also imagined that the Lord's heaven was made up of their own few. And this is where we really get into what's the difference between heaven and hell. Even if it's a mild hell, what's the difference? And here, as we look through, how do you sort through this seems pretty good, is it good? What am I going after here? What's the difference between this affection or this behavior and the other? How do you sort out all this? The greatest thing we can know is like, what is, from a 10,000 foot view, which one of these, I don't know why you'd need two question marks there, but which is which? How do you tell all this jumble apart? These people in this interior group of friendship that he's talking about. So you have them here, right? And they are all totally loving each other, right? And they feel like, look, I don't have any quarrels with you. I don't have any quarrels with you. I really like you. I really admire you. This is so great. We all love each other. Isn't that heaven? But the difference here is that really what this is not a befriending of goodness and truth. Because they're not saying, oh, we all love what's good and what's true. We love each other. And how the difference that manifests is when you're loving each other, at least in this case, they do so when the image in the mind is, look at us. Aren't we awesome? Aren't we great? And all these other people that are out here. They just don't get it. Maybe we don't even hate them, but we just know they are not on the same level as us in the middle here. And that is the opposite of heaven. Because heaven is not, I just love the people around me. Heaven is, I love everyone because I love love. I love goodness. And I know, and goodness itself, which is, by the way, God. God loves everybody. And so to have a love that finds its limits in a group, no matter if that group is big, that it doesn't even matter. You can have a particular society or group that you're in that you know better and you think about more, but even in heaven, that's very much the case. There are these communities that are very tight with each other, and they feel like Swedenborg describes you coming among these people and feeling like, oh, these are my people. I really love them. But the difference is the spirit of that group that are together, the purpose that they're engaged with, because everything is its purpose, the purpose that they're engaged with is we all together love not just the association with each other, we love what we can do together effectively to serve the human race. The angelic mindset is that they want others outside themselves to be happier than they are. So for the community, we are all here and we really work well together and we really love each other, and what our earnest goal is together. We have a shared purpose together, because remember, that shared purpose is what brings people together. Our shared purpose is how can we possibly, the delight of our life is how do we make life better for these people, for the rest of the people, because that is the greatest thing that we could possibly be engaged with. And why is that heaven? Because that's what God is. If God was any kind of love for particular attributes or qualities, wouldn't God just love himself? Because God is super awesome compared to us, very much smarter than us, very much bigger than us, whatever it is. God is the will to be kind to everyone, and particularly those outside. There is no trace of, aren't I cool, in God? Because if there was, think about just how much God would fall in love with himself. It's a weird thought experiment, but because God is so great. But what God is, what makes God so great, is that God is the love of serving others. And you can see that. You know, when we come across somebody who doesn't at heart consider themselves superior to you or superior to anyone, but instead really genuinely and from a humble heart loves everyone, nobody thinks that isn't cool. Everybody understands that's legit. And that is because that's what heaven is. And this is Swedenborg. And again, this look, yeah, we are the only ones that God cares about. That's a classic trap you fall into. Swedenborg sets them straight here. But I was allowed to tell them that the Lord's heaven is boundless, and that it consisted of those from every people and language, and that all are in heaven in whom the good of love and faith has existed. You love what's good, you love what's true. Not that that's what God checks for in your pocket before you're allowed in, but that is what heaven is. So that's what pulls you by the constant spiritual force into that. I also showed that those in heaven correlate with all the provinces of the body, both its exterior and interior parts, which is that weird thing I was talking about before. But if their minds were set on anything beyond and out of keeping with their life, if particular they were to condemn others outside their community, they could not receive heaven. Isn't it weird he's talking about the body? Can anything in the body function if it cares about itself more than it cares about the body. Everything in the body is in this mindset. Your liver is doing everything for the good of the whole. Your lungs are doing everything for the good of the whole. As soon as something is thinking about itself rather than the body, it's cancer or it's some kind of disease. This is not a strange idea. This is written into every human being. This is written into biology. Within an organism, there has to be this mindset of service to the whole, and that's what makes heaven. It's all kinds of different groups, and the groups are very tightly brought together. Everyone in the liver, if we're going to talk about this most noble of organs, the liver, everybody there, sure, they communicate with each other. They're interacting. All the little cells in there are very much, they got a membrane around. They're very cohesive, and they are what they are. They have an identity, but their identity is the function of serving the body. That's what it is, and that's what heaven is. And if you don't have that mindset, God is going to try to make you as happy as you possibly can be, but you can't be in heaven because that mindset isn't heaven. It just is impossible. And it would destroy the rest of heaven. Just like if you have anything in the body taking resources and taking up space that isn't performing a function, you start to see all these health effects from that. For in this case, their community is a community of interior friendship, which, as has been stated, is such that when they get near others, they dispossess of them the bliss which their spiritual affection gives them. Just like if you have something in the body that starts to take the blood and take the ATP or whatever else and not give enough back, the system is starting to feel drag. You're losing efficiency for everything. They see these people as the ones who are not the elect and as those who are not living. And this thought, when it is communicated, it leads to sadness. But in keeping with the law of order in the next life, this sadness comes back to themselves. Oops. So that is absolutely right. That last point about leads to sadness. When it's communicated, it leads to sadness. Because don't you sort of feel, well, first of all, when you know somebody knows, or you know somebody believes that they or their group are superior to yours, just that they think they're cooler than you, doesn't that make you sad? Doesn't that just make you, especially if they really are pretty cool and pretty popular and pretty strong or pretty successful, whatever it is, just makes you feel worthless, right? That's sadness number one. But sadness number two is it eventually leads us to sadness. The life of where you get your primary joy from being better than other people can feel good at times, but it gets lonelier and lonelier, and it can't last, and it's not real. So it's really not something good for anyone. It's not even just saying, oh, come on, you can't have that because it makes me sad. It just makes everyone sad. It is sadness. So as we sort out our life and all these things, which one is it? What's good, what's bad? Just know the primary joy, the love of everyone, the love of service to the common good is heaven. The love of self and exclusion to the common good is hell. And that's the message all throughout Swedenborg's works. And I found, let it resonate in your mind, let it direct what you do. It's going to do something good. And that's the news from heaven. Yo, how'd it go? I know this one was a little bit long. Hello, wake up. Wake up. Okay. We're going to go do an episode again real soon, and I hope to see you there. Join us for the Off the Left Eye experience. This is going to be a time when we can dive into ideas for a whole weekend. Check the link there to sign up. And thanks for letting me go through, look, we start on dysfunctional friendships, but we end on here's how we can be a better friend to everyone. And that's the point of why we're talking about this stuff in the first place. How can we be a better friend to everyone? Hopefully something you heard in here lets you go do that this week. Let us know in the comments, and we'll talk to you soon.